Hey everybody, Brady here, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be continuing our speedruns. Today we're doing a London. And we have D4, D5 going on here. So I'm just going to play knight F3. Because my mother loves me. I'm just kidding. Okay, they're playing this sort of D5, E6 stuff. So, yeah, I think what we're going to do is we're going to try to maintain some symmetry at first. And there's this idea that I don't think I've tried out yet, but I would like to try that out now, and that's playing knight to d2 here. So most people, you would know, play bishop g3, but you can actually play this structure with some success. And what's the idea behind this structure exactly? The idea is that we're trying to get more control over the e5 square. And we're going to play the move bishop to d3. If c5, we can just play c3 and just maintain. But the big idea is we're going to go for some sort of knight e5 at some point, and it's going to be pretty uncomfortable for them. And I'm thinking knight e5 is the perfect time now. If they end up taking, we can take on e5 as well. Yeah, we're just going to play c3 here. No reason not to. And it looks like we're going to be casting short because of c5 early. Not really a concern for us. We're happy to do so. But as you can see, if this pawn were on e3, it wouldn't be able to support this sort of knight e5 in the way that it is currently. And it's very nice on e5, let me tell you. So I'm looking to increase the attack by playing queen f3 and queen h3. And after queen h3, I have some threats. I am threatening to take on d7, where if they take with the knight, there's mate. Small, but important threat. And after queen h3, that's not the only thing I'm trying to do here. So I'm going to play queen h3. Note that they cannot take on e5, because after I take back, they have to jump in with knight e4, which is not something they want to do. And in fact, after knight e4, I can play f3, just winning the knight. Because if they move the knight in any way, then they get mated on h7. So this is, again, one of those kind of weird things where it's kind of nice to be able to play like this. So this is a very, very interesting move. What they're trying to do is play bishop a6 and try to trade off my bishop here. I like rook f to c1, and I also like g4. g4 is quite obvious. I'm trying to go g5. But sometimes obvious is fine. Not a bad thing. I'm going to start with rook f to c1. And this is dissuading our opponent from ever taking on d4. And if bishop a6, I can now play bishop to c2. I'm trying to maintain all the pressure in the position and just go for the all-out attack. And again, one thing I would love to do right now is go g4. So g4, they might have to play some sort of g6, but that's kind of what we're really hoping for, because then we can try some sort of g5 anyways, and then bring the knight to g4 and either f6 or h6 and try to really attack their dark squares all of a sudden. Very unusual strategy, but still an effective one. Now what they're trying to do is they're trying to take on d4 anyways. So we can just play bishop to c2, or we can take on d7, where they have to take with the queen. I like forcing them to take with the queen. But also, we could just go g4 anyways, because if they take on d4, we can take on d7, and they have to respond to it by taking on with the queen, and then we can just recapture. So I'm gonna play g4 anyways, and I'm gonna say what's up. Hello, my name is Braden. So instinct is they're gonna take on d4. After g6, we could also go queen h6, for example, first. But we have to be scared of knight takes and then knight takes g4 stuff. We don't want to run into any situations where we're hanging pawns. So we're being very, very, very aggressive. And again, one thing to point out, again, just in case. Okay, now I think g5 is working, right? Okay, so g5 is technically working, but we want to be a little bit careful about how we go about it. So I think f3 here is important. Or knight f3. Either way, what they're trying to do here is they're trying to take advantage of the fact that the d4, like they're trying to take and then take on c1. That's one of their big ideas here. So we want to make sure it goes off as badly as possible for them. And playing something like g5 is tempting, but I'm thinking if they take on d4, are we in trouble? Well, we can take on f6, they take on c3, and we can take on c3 as well. That looks quite good. So g5, knight e4 is what I was considering and concerned about. So we take on h6, they can take on d2, we're sacrificing a piece, and then we take on g7. If they go knight f3 check or anything, we probably have to take it, and they have enough time maybe to consolidate. And I don't like that. That's why I want to play f3 and then g5, to prevent knight e4 altogether. But if I play f3, they take, do I have time for g4, g5? They take it, then we can take on d7, and then on g5. That looks quite good. I'm thinking that these calculations do work out for us, but we have to be careful still. Because we can easily see ourselves messing up. But the important thing is, after they take, it's not like we're forced to just try to keep our pawn or anything. We can push. And yeah, I like pushing now. Now, all of a sudden, after we push, we're forcing their knight to a really, really, really awkward square. I'm not exactly sure where they go. I think this knight's trapped, yeah? This knight is trapped. One thing they could try is taking on e5, but this is, again, just playing into our dream of just taking back on e5. Simple as that. And they can move back or anything, but then we just rip open the kingside with taking on h6. So, kind of a beautiful scenario here. And the nice thing is, this is one of the coolest parts about the London. You don't have to play like this. You don't have to be super aggressive, but you can be, or you can just choose the exact opposite direction. And that's one of the cool things about the London that I really appreciate, where a lot of people will have like one repertoire. Like me, I have a classical repertoire. That is not the London, by the way. I want to be clear. When I talk about the London, this is from an outsider's perspective. I have very little knowledge about any serious stuff in the London. But what I do have is a repertoire that I use consistently that is kind of just one thing. And the one problem that comes up with having just one thing as a repertoire is I'm trying to keep my train of thought while also attacking. This is quite difficult, honestly. Okay, so g6. I like bishop b5 here. Sorry. I know I'm like losing my train of thought, but this looks very effective. We're threatening to just take on d7. And if they go here, then I can give a check, funnily enough. Yeah. So, okay, sorry, my apologies. With a London repertoire, you can have a few things at once with it, right? You can have something super aggressive, so if you're feeling like you just want to crush somebody, then you can do that. But also, if you want to play things a little slow, you can do that as well, and you can do that within the same repertoire. Whereas if you play something like e4 or d4, generally, whatever your opponents play, it's going to dictate what you do a little bit, at least a little bit. And not everyone likes that. So, hey, if you're considering trying to be a little crazy sometimes, then maybe this is the right way for you to go. Playing this. So I'm just going to take. And we're going to win the exchange here. And now I need to get this guy in the game. And I think the way I do that is bring it to e3 and to g4. Okay, and this I'm very happy with seeing, actually. Very, very happy. Because now I'm not even worried about bringing it to E3 or C3 or whatever. I'm just looking to get over to the D file as fast as possible. Yeah, so I'm going to bring my queen to D2. Or now C2. And we're going to have a jolly old time. Okay, queen D2, just to defend everything. And let's go knight G3. So this just prevents knight to H5. Now we can take that. I like rook C3. I also like A3 first to prevent queen B4. So if I go rook C3, there's no queen D4, preventing queen C1. Wow, they took. Okay, so now I'm just going to give this check. This checkerdoodle. And the reason why is because I want to open things up a little bit. If I can. I'm going to take here because I don't want them to be able to take with the queen. No reason to allow that. Wow. They're going crazy. Okay. Let's go rook C3. Maybe queen E3 next. So we have the C file and we have the E file now. This is awesome. This is really, really nice for us. This is making me want to be a London player. But I don't know if I could do it full time. Okay, so they go there. Yeah, I think it's time to just take it. So we could try F4. I like F4, but I also like Queen G2. I like Queen G2 quite a bit. And there's actually this funny idea of if they play Queen F4, there's two things we can try. We can try Queen H3, G3, which I actually think I'll do. Or we could do Queen G4, which also forces the queen trade. But this is forcing a queen trade in just a slightly nicer way where we keep our material. Queen G4 would give up a pawn, but Queen H3 does not give up anything. So if they go Queen H4, we just take it, and then we start probing with Rook C6 or Rook C7. Or if they go Queen G5, we just give a check here. Yep, and we just give a check here now. That's fine. We can go F4 if we want to. Which I don't hate, but I think I'm just going to take. Just keeps everything under control. King F4, we just go King F2. And here we just go King F2 anyways, so it's all good. And yeah, now that we win this pawn, it'll be a lot easier to create our own passed pawn and cause some damage. Now that we've taken, we can take here. And that's what happens when you're on material. You just kind of provoke more and more and more. So let's look at the analysis here, because I think there's going to be some interesting things to come up that we're going to have to discuss. So yeah, we tried something different here with this knight to d2, which I thought was quite fun. And as you can see, white does have like the slightest of advantages. And the way that they need to play against this is some lines of b6, I believe, and c5 immediately. And you're trying to make two, like you're trying to isolate the d pawn, essentially. That's the best strategy. So our opponent was kind of on the right track there with c5, c3. But b6, maybe not really the best way to continue. I think they should just take. And yeah, something like queen b6. But yeah, it's kind of like hard to know exactly what to do against these structures if you haven't seen them before. Just in my experience, yeah, if you isolate the d pawn, then things get a little awkward. Oops. Okay, so castles, bishop b7, queen f3, and yeah, we're going for like the most simplistic attack ever, but as you can see, white's fine here going for this attack. It's not maybe the most effective way to play, but it is definitely interesting. I thought rook f to c1 was quite cool too. So the problem is, it actually is showing up as one of the top moves, which is cool. So rook f e1 and rook f c1 are the two best, and knight df3 is popping up as well now. But the reason why I liked rook f c1 is to discourage them from taking on d4, which is kind of their biggest idea in the first place. And also, I was trying to get out of the fact that if I go rook e1, I was a little worried of some sort of bishop a6, and I didn't want to go bishop b1, right? However, whenever we see this position and we go rook fc1, bishop a6, then we can go bishop c2, and I thought the big difference is that it also is still discouraging them from taking, because we have this bishop takes h7 check threat. And we can still go for a normal attack. So this is kind of like in depth what I was thinking in this position of rook fc1. Maybe it looks like a random move, but the biggest problem is bishop a6 is a strategic threat, because this is our nice attacker. So if we play something like g4, I think bishop a6, they should actually be fine here, because they're pinning the bishop to our rook, and we can't really get away with that so easily. Our only move to not be slightly worse is just to take on a6. And then we play g4, and for what, right? Because the whole idea is just attack h7 here. So that's the idea behind rook fc1. So rook c8, g4. And my idea here was, after taking on d4, I was actually considering this move g5, taking on d7. Turns out c takes d4 is quite strong, and I was hesitant to go into this, but the reason why is because we do go down 1 point of material, but it actually looks like it's okay in this position. Somehow it's all fine, which makes sense now that I'm looking at this with queen e3. Of course, you don't really want to take. This would be a huge mistake, because now after bishop e2, they can go e3 check as well, and trade off that piece, open up their bishop, and yeah, they're just winning. So that was their way of defending. I didn't really think we were winning here or anything, but I thought we had some good attacking potential. Didn't know that c takes d4 kind of just proves that wrong there. But yeah, so I tried f3 here. I was a bit worried of going g5 immediately, because I saw this knight e4 motif anyways. So like takes and yeah, knight takes e5, d takes is also playable. They have to move their knight. If they take, then we can just take on e4, but knight e4. And again, the biggest problem for us is that now we just have a ton of weaknesses, and h7 is plugged for the moment. So that's why I played f3, is because now they don't have this knight e4 motif anymore. But knight h7, rook fe8, g5, and knight h7 was quite clever. Instead, taking on g5 was quite good, and the idea here is after they take, there's knight takes e5, or after it takes and knight d7, this is playable. But I thought that we had a pretty reasonable position after f4. We can look for some checks, trying to take on g7, and going for something like g6. And I thought this would be really unpleasant for black. But knight h7 was their first big misstep, where we can take on h6. And I like this bishop b5 move. Queen g3 is also quite good as well. But bishop b5 just goes for the immediate winning of material, which they can't really avoid. They could have also tried something like knight to f6 here. I don't think this is completely stupid. And the reason why is because what they're trying to do here is just play a position where they have both knights and try to create some problems. Bring this knight to h5, this knight to f6. Even though the evaluation says white's better, there's still a lot to prove, because we're up 3 points of material and it only is like plus 1.5. That means they have plus 1.5 of compensation. That's how you can think of it with the engine, right? Like if you're down a pawn but it's equal, then you have a pawn's worth of compensation or initiative. So rook e7, knight g3, and yeah, I thought this was really not the best way for them to go. I thought just like keeping the tension here is much more important. So bringing this knight into the game made sense, with knight to f6, bringing it to h5. And the big problem for them is the second they open the d-file, they give both of these rooks a place to go. So yeah, that's why I just started bringing them in towards the queen side, because now we have an avenue of attack. So knight g3, yeah, I don't really care about this pawn at all. It just kind of helps us, because they're wasting time trying to deal with that. Rook c3, And yeah, and now we can just kind of safely win. And this queen g2 move, we're just threatening f4 and rook h3. So queen f4 is the only try, but now we have this maneuver as stated before, where we can force the exchange and start winning pawns just immediately. Rook c6 is what you would call kind of like a pin, because it's pinning the b pawn to the bishop. The bishop is also defended behind it, so the pawn can't move, and something's going to fall here for sure. And bishop e2, we have king f2 with tempo, so we're not worried about that. That's about it for this game. I hope you enjoyed. Pretty funny to see that at worst it was just like equal for us going for this entire attack, but there was a lot of lines where black could just like lose immediately. Very important for whenever you're considering these attacks, but it's very, very specific. You have to be very careful about going for them. But they do work out sometimes, and they're a lot of fun to play. And I think that's the more important thing, is you can have fun while playing a position that's equal. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. All right, bye-bye.